Okay, so I'm here with Moira Cook, and welcome to the Wellness Docket, Moira. I've been excited about getting you on for some time, and basically, I start seeing people on LinkedIn and posts that I like, and I'm like, oh, that's a great topic that we can look at. And so, just a quick introduction is Moira is a former lawyer who practiced estate litigation in Toronto before going back to school to become a registered psychotherapist. She now works primarily with lawyers who are seeking to address burnout, anxiety, ADHD, addiction, and other issues. So I think you're the first therapist that we've had on this podcast, and so I'm excited to talk about, your experiences from a lawyer point of view and compare it to your experiences as a therapist. And so, welcome, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you so much for having me on.
For sure. So I guess I'm going to start off just with a simple question is what kind of drew you to the law in the first place? And then how long did you spend practicing law?
I guess, like many people, I did my undergrad in something, I did it in sociology, and I wasn't sure sort of where that was going. I knew I could probably do it, write a good LSAT and, probably get in. And that was sort of the main thing. Like I thought, oh, this is something I could do. Doesn't everybody aspire to be a lawyer or a doctor or, something like that? There was certainly like I want to help people and I want to sort of be part of a more just society and sort of like more altruistic values there. But primarily it was because it offered like a solid profession to work into as opposed to some of these undergrad degrees that are more, okay, now what do you do? Do you go into academia? Like, I don't even know what a sociologist does to be,
Right. I was a political scientist, so
yeah.
I get it.
I liked the offer of like, you graduate, you're going to get a job. It's going to happen, right?
Which is mostly true.
Yeah. For the vast majority of us, for sure. Yeah.
For sure. So what year did you start practicing? Like what year did you graduate and start articling and practicing?
I articled in 2006 or 7, and I got called in 2008.
Okay. And how long did you practice for?
About 10 years.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened that kind of made you change course and move into psychotherapy?
So I was practicing at a firm in Toronto, and they were actually very reasonable. It wasn't like, some of the huge law firms with the like, really high billable hours targets. It was reasonable billable targets. It was a medium-sized firm, so people were very kind and collegial. It wasn't like super stressed out environment, and I was doing quite well, and everything was going well until, which I think a lot of lawyers can identify with, like something happened in my personal life. And in my case, it was the breakdown of a relationship, like a serious long-term relationship. And when that happened, everything else just sort of started to crumble. I was falling behind on billable hours. I was just getting very anxious at work, and it was just like a snowball effect from that point. I started drinking to deal with like the anxiety and the constant thinking about files and, all that sort of thing. So I met someone new who was very supportive, and I just said, I just couldn't take it I just had to stop. It really had ignored it to the point of crashing, really, and I don't recommend that, sort of trying to get everyone to not do that now, but yeah.
And what year was that you decided to make that change?
2015, 16, something like that. Yeah.
And did you know immediately that you wanted to go into the psychotherapy?
No, when I left, I left sort of impulsively my firm, and I thought, oh, I'll just venture out on my own or something, right? So I'll just take on clients. And I started to a little bit, and I realized like I just I had zero interest in doing. Every time I would try to pick up a file or do any sort of legal work, it was like I had become allergic to it or something. I used to love it. I used to love practicing law. And then all of a sudden it was like, no. So I took some time off. I had a kid, and then I focused on my mental health, and recovery. And I just realized like, oh, like this is something, like talking to people, helping people, all the stuff I loved about being a lawyer without necessarily the work, the amount of work or the stress or the pressure. There's a lot of overlap actually between law and therapy.
Yeah, surprisingly. And originally, when you made that decision to change, do you think, when was that? You said it was like 2016, 17?
Yeah.
Did you know that there was a problem in the law practice? Because there's been a lot of reports that have come out since then. Did you have an inkling at that time that this was an area that was ripe for new practitioners?
Originally, when I wanted to get back into when I wanted to work in mental health, I wasn't specifically thinking of targeting lawyers as clients. But my husband is a lawyer. I have a lot of connections in the legal industry, friends, and so I do. We always knew. I mean, we always sort of understood that there is a big issue in the legal industry. And I originally thought I wanted to focus on addiction in the legal industry, but then I
Right.
realized that was maybe too niche, and I
Right.
needed to make it broader. So
It does seem like those two go hand in hand, that there's often an addiction issue, as well as the mental health problem as well.
sure, yeah, there are a lot of issues, and the thing about being a therapist for lawyers is, people will come to me because they're a lawyer and I'm a lawyer. But at the end of the day, like, half or more of the stuff we talk about is actually not work related at all. It'll just be family issue, whatever, right? Family issues, health issues, stress, everything.
What do you find are the biggest areas that you hear the most about? Is like, so first of all, what percentage of your practice is dealing with lawyers? And then of that percentage, what are the areas that you hear the reoccurring themes?
So almost all of my new clients going forward have been lawyers, or at least working in the legal industry, or law students, that sort of thing. And that's great. There are definitely reoccurring themes. A lot of them have new diagnoses of like ADHD or autism, or they suspect. So a lot of that, a lot of our work might focus on figuring that stuff out, right? And like, how do you function? How do you manage? Do you have this, condition? So that's sort of like the neurodivergent lawyer is sort of one area. But, the vast majority of people will also have concerns with always being like a constant fear. I think is a thing that I see amongst a lot of my clients, is just a fear of clients suing them, or a fear of their boss getting angry and really firing them, like this underlying sense of threat that they might at one point lose their job or lose their career. It seems like always present,
Hmm.
and that's sort of sad, or makes me sad for them.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I've been practicing now for close to 14 years. That's definitely something that you feel, and I don't think, stop me if I'm wrong, or if you agree with me on this, that society and clients and expectations don't exactly help that very much, right? Like, I think things are just in some ways out of control. It used to be a time where you'd send a letter and it would take weeks for somebody to get it, and then they'd respond. But now it's like immediate request for time, almost all the time.
When I articled, they were handing out Blackberries, but like the little ones that you could only see like a few lines of text and stuff. And this was new and exciting and a big deal. But that was sort of the beginning. And, it's debatable. Some people say, well, I was expected to be at the office basically all the time. So this way, at least I could get out of the office and be reachable, you know. So it sort of depends, but definitely being accessible 24/7 is not helped matters, I think.
And so, what kind of things have you found that are helpful to your lawyer clients specifically, that kind of help them make more deeply understand kind of what they're dealing with, and how to overcome these problems? Because like some of the things that you're talking about, it's so baked into the profession that it's sometimes hard to coach one person, or your clients, on how to deal with that. Are there specific things that are really helpful for people that you've kind of found?
everyone's so unique that it's hard to say, right? Like some people come to you and you can just tell from the first session, this person needs to switch jobs. Like there's no way that this person is going to thrive where they are now, right? So that's a completely different scenario than someone who, runs their own practice and is struggling with, just practice management issues or family life issues. So it's not like one solution for everybody, but it's sort of a like a triage. Like, let's figure it out. Do we need to look at shifting your career? Like, do you need to make some changes in your career? Do you need to make some changes in your own life and like how you set boundaries, and whether, are you do you have a life? Do you have a life outside of law, right? And sort of looking at your values, like why have you given up trying to have a life outside of law? Like, are you so exhausted? Do you need to focus? Some people just need to focus on getting enough sleep and getting enough, food, healthy food, and exercise and things like that. Like, it can be very different for different kinds of lawyers. And a lot of them thrive at their jobs and love it. It's just they need help with things outside of their jobs.
Is there any one, I know everybody's very different, but is there any one thing that you see repeatedly that, that's kind of, you've kind of said, oh, wait a second here, that's something that just keeps coming up over and over and over again?
Yeah, I think definitely people pleasing behaviors, and I don't know if a lot of lawyers recognize how much of a people pleaser they are, because I don't know, they sort of dismiss that. They're like, I'm not trying to please people, but they don't realize that, like, not turning down, a file that they should turn away for their mental health, or that, not like reducing their hours or limiting things like that. That is people pleasing behavior. It's a constant need to be respected, admired, loved, appreciated, whatever. I think people pleasing is a big one. And intellectualizing, like trying to intellectualize all of their emotions instead of just like recognizing. So getting in touch with like that part of their life, I think is important for them. Yeah.
That's not necessarily something that we're very good at in the
I'm
profession,
not,
is it?
I'm not even good at it. And I'm a therapist. So yeah, just instead of saying, like, I shouldn't feel this way, I have no right to feel upset, or I don't, and it's this intellectualizing of emotions. Like, do you have a right to feel upset right now? No, we don't do that here, right? We talk about, are you upset right now? It doesn't matter whether you have a right to, or you should, or you shouldn't, right? Like, and so like just identifying your own emotions and being able to sit with them instead of pushing them aside and intellectualizing them is a big one.
And do you see a lot of progress with people who are able to, especially the lawyers, who are able to get in touch a little bit more with our feelings?
Yeah, I do see a lot of progress with lawyers, for sure. Like, I think because it's a population of such bright people, right? That like once they make a sort of decision to work on something, they are go-getters at that too, right? And at therapies. Yeah, it's great. So you can like say to them, like, let's have like a project this week where you try to step outside of your comfort zone and you try to do something new, or whatever. And they'll actually do it, right? Which is great. Like, that's, for a therapist, that's happy time when people put effort into their journey, right?
Yeah, for sure. And what kind of things do you most advise people to do?
Journaling, even if it's like a one sentence entry, about a tough experience, a tough day, like, just so you could identify like your feelings. So getting in touch with that. So like, today I was very overwhelmed, because XYZ, and that's basically it, right? Like, that is so helpful. That's a game changer, really. Meditating, everyone hates it. Like, ask them to do it, no one wants to do it. But meditation is, if you meditate for 5 minutes, it's like per day, it's like going to the gym, right? Like, it just resets things and it clears out a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of yuck emotions.
Do you think that, like, so you just said two things that I'm terrible at?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're all like, so I think about this. I think I've tried journaling multiple times. I even have an app on my phone and it pops up and says, "Hey, would you like to talk about your trip to this restaurant today?" And I'm like, "Nope, I don't want to talk about it." And the other thing with that is that even the meditation, do you think that the problem with the meditation is, do you think people are doing it incorrectly, or do they have the wrong, like when you say that to me, I've immediately got this like, you've got to do that, and it,
Yeah.
there's like a hokey, there's like a pushback for me that says, "Oh, well, that's too hokey for me."
Oh, yeah, yeah. Like it's too, like I think I got over that thought like 10 years ago. So, but I remember thinking it myself. I remember thinking like that's too woo woo or whatever. Meditating in this day and age is so powerful because we literally, our brains are never off, like never. From the moment we get up, it's like scrolling through. And uh, you were asking about themes. Like every single client I have, not even every single lawyer, is probably like addicted to scrolling right now, right? So meditation is just the opposite of that. Like it's just finding a few minutes where your brain is just quiet, and you're not constantly thinking about things, thinking about your work, thinking about whatever. It's rest in a way that's not sleep, but it's so powerful. And you can do it. I mean, you can. There are all sorts of apps and stuff that you can do, but you can also do it like, we do little meditation exercise where you're washing the dishes, and I tell you, like, we'll talk about wash the dishes like with focus, like with intent, like feel the soap in your hands, feel the water, like don't think about anything, let your mind clear, don't think about anything else other than this act of washing the dishes. And it's little moments like that, because I know people don't want to, like, even like turn on an app and sit there and do it. So it's like practicing the art of clearing your head during everyday activities is a little bit more palatable for some people.
Right. And the journaling, what do you tell people that are like me? Because I assume there's lots of them out there, especially the guys. I don't,
Yes.
I feel like we don't, it just, I don't know what it is. I don't want people to read what I'm writing. Like
Yeah,
there's like a fear, like it's too personal. Like you don't want to go there.
I get it. For someone who is like super resistant to the idea of journaling, I say like the purpose of journaling is just to, when we are stressed out, we identify with the stress too much. We're in the stress. The stress becomes us. When we journal and we write down, I was stressed today because XYZ. Like we think about the stress on a meta level, right? We're
Right.
thinking about it. So if you really don't want to journal or you're not ready to go there, if you have a partner, you could say to your partner out loud, "Oh, I had a stressful day today because X, Y, and Z." Like that's sort of the same thing. It's just instead of writing it down, you're saying it to somebody else.
Yeah, that resonates with me. My wife and I do that all the time, and we're very lucky that it seems neither we usually don't hit those same days at, all at the same time, which
Mhm.
is good. If it's me that's having the day, or it's her that's having the day, usually the other person is pretty steady most of the time.
Right.
But I think the journaling thing is something that could help out a lot, because we do write every day. We write other things. Why is it? I don't know why. I've got a block with it, and I haven't been able to get through that.
Yeah. I mean, eh, writing it down, people say like you can do a voice memo or you can just say it out loud, right? And even if you just think about it, even if you just take a minute to say, like, "Oh, I'm anxious today. Where's all this anxiety coming from? Like, what's going on?" And just spending some time thinking about your own thoughts and emotions. That's really what it is. So it doesn't have to be pen to paper if that makes you uncomfortable, for sure.
Right. What is, without kind of going through details, obviously, because we're in a world where your profession is confidential, and lawyers are confidential. What are some of the hardest things that you've had to deal with, as a psychotherapist?
Trauma, definitely. Just like, just because it's, lawyers, it's not all necessarily work related, but like, so trauma, histories of abuse are difficult to deal with. Yeah. If you want to talk about in the legal context specifically, I even call it like work trauma. Like if you were fired in front of colleagues or something, right? Something like where you felt for a moment that your whole like legal career was being like, yanked out from under you. That can be really hard to recover from.
And in the legal profession, what are the biggest sources of trauma that you see?
Like specifically related to the legal profession.
Yeah.
I would just say repeated, like it's more of a chronic issue then, right? So trauma, when we think about trauma, it can be like, one really bad incident, which of course there are, like I said, getting fired or having a judge yell at you in front of a client or something like that can be very upsetting. But for other people, it's just like not getting hired back from articling. That is like really huge. It's a really big one, you know? And it's just really hard to get someone's confidence back after something like that. So yeah, so like big career setbacks and just feeling like, why can't I do this? Like everyone else seems to be able to function. What's the issue with me? When you fumble, like if you some people will, have an addiction and people find out about it, or they have to take a leave of absence from work or something like that, right? And that's a huge career setback, reset, whatever, where you have to deal with now everybody's looking at me and thinking, oh, they've got this problem. It's not true. Like people, aren't necessarily as judgmental as we think in our heads that they are about us, but it can be hard. We like to think like the whole world is thinking about us, and that's why we become so self-conscious. But uh, that's a common theme that comes up. And I just say, when you're thinking that way, your focus is on you and like what is everyone thinking about you. And so instead of like try to shift your focus outward, you're at a party and you're self-conscious, stop thinking about what other people are thinking about you and shift your focus to the other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so looking back a little bit on your transition from your career, do you feel that you made the right choice?
I mean, look, there was parts of the law practicing law that I really loved, and I have been thinking to include or add like mediation back into my practice.
Mhm.
So it's not like I'm done with the law or I hate it or anything like that, right? So did I make the right choice? I love what I do now. It's enjoyable. It's almost all parts of it are enjoyable except like administrative tasks. But
Right.
I really love what I do now. So I'm happy about that. Financially, it's not. Let's be realistic. It's not anywhere near law, but it's still a great, very fulfilling job.
As long as you're happy too, right?
Yeah, but I see why, it's not like realistic to say if you're a partner at a Bay Street firm, you're not gonna necessarily like it's not the same thing to quit your job and become a therapist or become something else, right? Like there's just you can't, and that's one thing that definitely holds lawyers stuck or feeling stuck is that there's like almost no other job that you could get that would make the same money for you, right? So it's like the golden handcuffs idea, right? So yeah, for sure, as long as you're happy. But if you're, uh, I'm blessed and lucky to have a partner who helps who helps to support me. But if you're making a lot of money and supporting a whole family, you can feel stuck. You can feel like, well, there's no way I can get another job that I like more, but that pays me like half of what's paying me now, right? Like,
What do you what are some things about the culture of the legal profession that particularly bothered you, when you were in the profession more closely?
it's funny because working in estate litigation, it was a pretty small bar, and people were pretty polite. They were
Mhm.
polite and they were generally quite nice. So I feel like a bit of a like a wimp to say, oh my God, I was really affected by the adversarial nature of communications and emails and letters. But it's true. I was like really, I got to a point where I was like tired of like every email being like cranky problem to solve, right?
Right.
And even
And
if
govern yourself accordingly.
yeah, even if it wasn't like, okay, this person's not furious, but it was like again chronic, like relentless, like every day just problem, problem, problem. wears on you. So I think that that's sort of it's a hard thing to manage and to deal with, and to be like, if you're a sensitive soul, to be like the kind of person who doesn't take that to heart and like let it bother them.
Yeah, for sure. So here is a question that I ask everybody when we do these interviews is if there was one thing that you could change about the legal profession, what would it be?
I would just like want people, the lawyers, the especially like the leaders in the legal profession, people responsible. I would want everyone to just like relax a little bit, like the sense of urgency, the sense of like, everything has to be done yesterday and perfectly, and it's the vast majority of cases are dealing with financial loss, right? And so it's not the end of the world kind of stuff, but we have a culture where we're stressing each other out for no good reason. That's what I
Yeah,
think should
it's
change.
almost like we start off with the feeling that it's important, right? Like this is an important profession. And from that grounding, everything that kind of comes from that has to be important and you have to deal with it a certain way. And even sometimes moments of levity, I think, get ruined because, you're expected to be so serious that you can't get away from that.
Hmm. Yeah, and it is really everywhere. I mean, there are some people that you meet, like certain lawyers that you meet, that are much more chill, relaxed, like nice. Never they'll tell you like, don't worry about it. Like this is not life or death. And like more people like that would be helpful, I think, to um, to realize like we have lives outside of this job, and we should value that too. Like we need to be well-rounded people so that it can be something that you want to do for the rest of your life and you can do, not this like constant state of panic that you're in for, I don't know, how long is the